Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to another Society in Education and Anesthesia webcast. And today it is my great pleasure to have Andrew Infosino from UC San Francisco, as well as Marla Ferschl from UC San Francisco. They are both clinical professors and are subspecialists in pediatric anesthesia. Marla is the fellowship director at UCSF for the Pediatric Fellowship, Pediatric Anesthesia Fellowship. So welcome, and thanks so much for taking your time out of your day to tell us about your great project. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I always like to start out, I try to ask, well, what was the problem that you were trying to solve? Why did you even do what you ended up doing for your project? So what was the problem? And I'll start with Marla. How about you?
So we were struggling when we started, or when we were working to do our lectures for our fellows, to bring outside expertise and kind of enrich our fellow curriculum. At the same time, we noticed that junior faculty in particular were having trouble kind of reaching out to make networking and collaborations that are so important for promotion. So we developed this program to kind of tackle both of those issues. First, enriching our fellow didactic experience, and second, enhancing junior faculty collaboration and networking.
So collaboration and networking, was it also career development really too, not just collaboration and networking?
So all of these things are really important for promotion in academic medicine. Making connections outside of the institution is important, kind of for personal connectiveness, but also to help with your promotion packet and get references for letters for promotion, and kind of interface with people who have similar academic interests as you. So that was kind of the idea.
So I kind of clarify that just in case we have anybody in our audience that is not completely familiar with the promotion process, but in most institutions, and I serve as a reviewer, I am providing feedback on multiple faculty from across the country. So I've had experience with multiple different universities' promotion and tenure committee. But usually to get from the assistant level to the associate level, you will need to demonstrate at least regional, if not somewhere beyond your institution, your level of influence. And so that's a really important thing. And then of course, to get from associate to professor, you need to have a national reputation or national kinds of experience. So anything that you can do to promote yourself beyond or show that what you're doing has an impact beyond your local institution is important to progress in the different stages. Also, the networking part that you pointed out is important, because then you know other people that potentially can serve as reviewers for you or reference reviewers when you're going up for promotion. Andrew, did you have anything else you want to add about the problem you were trying to solve, or do you want to move on to how you tried to solve that problem?
I agree with Marla. There were really, the three major issues: academic isolation, faculty promotion, and fellow curriculum, and also fellow professional development. We also realized very early on that fellows themselves were often struggling with the jump from being a resident and a fellow and a trainee to being a junior faculty and a faculty, and how to help jumpstart their academic careers and to institute that notion of an academic career earlier rather than waiting until they're faculty. So one of the goals for our program was really to help fellows jump into the academic cycle and give them the tools they needed to succeed academically.
Fantastic. I think we'd all agree that those are problems that are common to all fellowships. So now let's get into the exciting part then, which is how you went to solve that problem. What did you do? What was the nature, if you could describe your program. And Marla, I think I'll ask you if possible to turn up your volume just a teeny bit. I don't know how it's going to show in the recording, but you're just a little bit quiet there. And so Marla, would you like to start?
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the VISAP program or the VISIPAP program.
Yeah, so we call it VisiPap. It stands for Visiting Scholars in Pediatric Anesthesia Program. So back in 2017, we began it as a regional reciprocal faculty exchange program among pediatric anesthesia divisions here on the West Coast. So we really designed it like a mini visiting professorship type program. And like we mentioned before, the goal was initially to promote career development of junior faculty by really providing them this opportunity for networking outside their own institution. Initially, of course, we started this pre-COVID, so there were in-person visits to local children's hospitals. It involved giving a presentation at either a fellow didactic conference or a grand rounds type of a forum. And then there was networking opportunities that involved one-on-one meetings with faculty from the host institutions, as well as a lunch and a dinner for the visiting faculty to attend.
So just to clarify, when you say it was like a mini visiting professorship, you were sending your fellows to other institutions that were participating in the VisiPap. And they were also, on the other hand, they were sending some of their fellows or junior faculty to your institution as well.
Yeah, so we originally started this with faculty, but we realized very quickly that fellows could be incorporated into the exchanges. So initially we had junior faculty, but then we decided actually this is a great opportunity for our fellows to get out there and meet some important people in pediatric anesthesia and network with local programs. And so very quickly after the initiation of the program, we incorporated fellows with the very local exchanges. So for us at UCSF, that was with Stanford and UC Davis, exchanges that, could be done with a car ride, a single day, less expensive, doesn't require a hotel stay or airline flight. And so that's how we thought this could actually extend to our trainees, this program.
So I'm going to ask Andrew to elaborate just a little bit, because I thought there were other institutions other than just UCSF and UC Davis that were participating. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how you got other institutions to participate.
Well, we started out locally, and it was UCSF and UC Davis, and then we expanded regionally with the other pediatric anesthesia divisions on the West Coast. And then through word of mouth, the idea was presented at the Pediatric Anesthesia Program Directors Meeting. Networked and developed other contacts and set up one by one additional programs that were interested in participating. And by the end of 2020, we had 17 institutions that had participated in VisiPap.
Fantastic. One of the questions I have is sort of about organization. Obviously, let's say if it was just you and Stanford, you send some people to Stanford, they send some to you. Now it sounds a little bit more of a challenge to coordinate 17 different institutions, like who's going where. Marla, do you have any comments about how you guys were able to accomplish that?
It is a lot of work, and I have to say Andrew has done a phenomenal job organizing this and kind of reaching out to different programs to get them involved in the VisiPap program. I think that the things that this program really requires for sustainability are time, effort, and of course putting the work into the presentation on the fellow or faculty side. And so these are some kind of potential challenges, but we feel that the program really brings such a great, rich experience both to the visitors and the people who hear the talks and get to do the networking, that it's really worth this extra time and effort.
Awesome. I would completely agree. Part of the reason during the interview why I focused so much on the practicality of what it takes to actually do is because one of the purposes of these podcasts or webcasts is to try and encourage other institutions to take advantage of best practices. So maybe the cardiovascular anesthesiologist or the regional anesthesiologist might want to put something similar in place. So that means that I have to ask Andrew a little bit about this coordination. It seems like one of the things that you need to do is develop the network. And then the second thing is you probably need to coordinate so that every institution is sending people, but also receiving people. You need to get it all balanced out. Is that right, Andrew? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So logistically, I use the concept of a reciprocal exchange. So basically, I queried all of the organizers. So every program had to have somebody who was going to be an organizer, communicator with me. And I asked them how many fellow faculty exchanges they wanted to do, or if they wanted to do just fellow exchanges or just faculty exchanges. And I tried to pair people up. So some of the bigger programs wanted to do more exchanges. They had more fellows, more faculty. Some of the smaller programs with only 1 or 2 fellows only wanted to do 1 or 2 exchanges per year. And so basically, I viewed it as kind of a matchmaking or a dating service. And I set the 2 institutions up, and I gave them each other's contact information, and then it was up to the individual program organizers to actually get together and figure out what date worked and the logistics of who was going and who was hosting.
Okay, fantastic. That always brings up another question that I have is what support, for example, so if you wanted to send somebody, originally it was just a car ride, but I think you've got a few plane flights pre-COVID, of course. Did you have to get some support from the chairs to support this?
We definitely needed support. We were very lucky that our chair, Michael Gropper, was very supportive at the beginning, and he felt that what little bit of money that was necessary to support this visiting professor and fellow program was small compared to the benefits. I mean, I think he really felt that the benefits were tremendous, and in terms of faculty promotion, faculty well-being, fellow development, professional development, et cetera. So, and I think we were able to use those ideas to sell it to other chairs and division chiefs. And many of them bought onto it. And I think if you do regional networking and regional exchanges, the cost is not as much as if you're trying to do national exchanges. So our initial concept was really to promote that everybody develop regional networks that they could inexpensively and logistically in a simple way, because of time zone issues, set up regional exchanges. Now, of course, post-COVID, everything changed. There were advantages and disadvantages. Clearly, we lost many opportunities for informal networking because we weren't in person. But what we gained was really the ability to inexpensively add the fellows to the mix. So the fellows could now participate in national VisiPap exchanges because there was no additional costs. And also the number of exchanges that you could do from a financial perspective increased because there was no real significant additional cost. So
brings me to sorry, go ahead.
So COVID has, created opportunities, even though it's changed the nature of it a bit.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense about how that would have changed the whole process. Now, Marla, you mentioned something earlier, which was part of this is also helping the fellow and the junior faculty prepare their presentation skills, and that senior faculty have to really put the time and effort into this process. Maybe you can describe a little bit about how did you prepare your fellows or junior faculties to now go on and give one of these presentations away?
Yeah, so mentorship is really key to the success of this program. I think that it's very important for both the fellows and the junior faculty to have someone to help oversee their presentation. The faculty members, it varies from institution to institution, but many institutions are, for example, using a committee to select the junior faculty who they believe will best represent their institution. And also we try and focus on faculty who are up for promotion soon. In terms of the fellow mentorship, what happens is once the fellow is selected to do a VisiPap presentation, they're paired with a faculty member. They choose a topic. The faculty member oversees the preparation of their topic and does practice presentations with them prior to their visit. And the idea is kind of by forging this very close relationship with a faculty member, the fellow feels like they have a mentor or a sponsor that kind of can shepherd them throughout their fellowship, not just for the VisiPap talk.
Just out of curiosity, Andrew, do you know how other institutions approach the preparation of their junior faculty or fellows?
Most of them have the fellow is paired with a faculty member, and the faculty member is responsible for mentoring them and overseeing them. I don't know exactly how each institution pairs them. Most of the time, I think it's because of similar interests, academic interests.
You know, honestly, I think there's a great benefit, and certainly the SCA provides opportunities for you to gain something in your presentation skills in many of their workshops, and I think that's incredibly valuable. And I would encourage your fellows or junior faculty to try and take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. But honestly, most presenters don't get much in the way of feedback. You know, the little surveys that they send out, often the results of those surveys are not helpful to you in understanding how to improve your presentation or your presentation skills. So I think this mentoring of the presentation before they give it, I think that's awesome, and maybe it's something that we should think about, you know, for all of our faculty to try and help improve the skill set. Because, you know, there's some great presenters out there, and there's some that are maybe not so hot. And but how do we ever learn that? How do we get some skills in that? So I think that's a very important aspect of what you're doing. Marla, was there anything, you know, I'm going to kind of turn to, you know, hiccups or challenges. You know, COVID obviously was one, but it actually offered an opportunity for you to adapt. But was there anything else that you felt was a challenge to implementing this, whether it's logistical or, you know, anything else that you felt were hurdles that you needed to overcome?
Well, certainly the biggest challenges up front were time, you know, getting faculty and fellows adequate time to go on these presentations, money, finding a funding source to send people and host dinners and host lunches. And then finally the effort, right? Because you need to have a fellow that's committed to doing the program and putting a great presentation together. The things that we're working on currently, kind of beyond that, include a way to do formal feedback for the presenters. We're working on designing a survey instrument now to help them not only get that pre-presentation feedback, but also post-presentation feedback. And also trying to get a sense of the program. We've done several participation surveys for presenters and attendees, and we've gotten some good data on it, but it's hard to really document all the benefits and outcomes that the program provides. And so that's something that's been a little bit challenging for us too.
So I'm going to just try to get a little bit more clarity on a couple of those things. The first thing that you mentioned was cost. So assuming this was a post-COVID era, which I think there is value in going actually there and being the mini professor, you know, and going to the dinners and those other things. I'm going to guess somewhere between a $5,000 and $10,000 commitment for a department. Andrew, does that sound about right? What you'd have to try to beg your chair for?
That's about right. I think if you want to do 3 to 4 exchanges, you need about 4,000 to 5,000. So it depends on whether the exchanges are regional or national. The national ones tend to be a little more expensive.
Okay. And then Marla, you talked about an instrument that you might be able to use to give feedback to the presenter. One of the things that we have here at the SCA is, along with your podcast, we can post other information. So if you come up with your survey that you feel is helpful, that provides more specific feedback than I think what you typically get in a you know, the normal things that we get for CME credit at the end of a presentation, we can post that as well along with this webcast, because that might be something that other programs could use as they attempt to mentor anyone giving a presentation. So I think we'd be quite interested in publishing that along with this webcast.
Great.
So I think that would be great. And then the last thing, which is a great segue into the next part of this, is we always like to think about what were the outcomes, you know, or how were you able to measure any of those outcomes. So you mentioned that you've got some survey data and some feedback. Can you tell us, at least I know it's hard to document, can you tell us though, you know, what you were able to find?
You want to take that, Andrew?
Well, you know, we did some surveys asking people with Likert scale scores from 1 to 5 whether they agreed that participating in VisiPap helped with mentoring and mentor-mentee relationship between the fellows and faculty. We also asked whether participating in VisiPap was helpful for promotion for the faculty, and whether VisiPap positively influenced fellows' decisions to stay in academic medicine.
Great questions.
And whether VisiPap helped them with networking and collaboration. But again, those are survey instruments which are probably have inherent biases. But we were also able to document, and perhaps this is the most important thing in terms of selling this to chairs and division chiefs, that participating in VisiPap directly led to increased academic output. So we surveyed, we were able to document a significant increase in the number of invited presentations, in the number of invited academic opportunities, like participating in or publishing online modules, as well as 8 authorships in academic journals. So that was a survey of about 50 participants with about a 75% survey response rate. So we thought that was fairly significant.
Those are great outcomes, and I think that's really interesting data. What I kind of was inferring from what you said earlier is that everybody responded favorably to, oh, this helped me with my mentor relationship, because you felt those were biased questions, so you didn't think everybody essentially responded favorably on those?
Yes.
Okay.
All the Likert scale scores were in the high 4.5 and above.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, even if it's biased, we'll take it as at least something that was good. But you're right, in terms of education research, difficult to use that towards a publication. All right. Well, I like to also think about, now that you've had some experience with this, you said it was introduced in 2017, and so you've actually had a couple of years of experience with this now. What do you think VisiPap's going to look like next year or the year after that? Where do you think you're heading?
So clearly the virtual format is probably here with us to stay, just because of its significantly decreased costs. But when I look towards the future, I probably envision some sort of hybrid model where there are some in-person VisiPap exchanges and some, whether it's Zoom or some other platform, some sort of virtual platform for other types of VisiPap exchanges. So that's, as I look towards the future, I see a mixture. And so that mixture will depend on the support that you get financially and the interest that you have in terms of the size of your faculty and the size of your fellowship.
So if we're to look at barriers, I really don't see much in the way of barriers. And why couldn't we be doing this in all of the subspecialty areas, or even just for the generalist pool? It sounds like the barrier is minimal in terms of cost. It's really about somebody to take the bull by the horns and do the organization and do the coordination to try and get the scheduling right. But other than that, it doesn't sound like, there sounds like a lot of benefits, but really not that many barriers. Would you say there's anything else about a significant roadblock for me to implement this for the regional anesthesia and pain medicine fellowships?
I would say that the major thing to think about is you need to create the audience. So you need to have a conference in which people can present. So if you don't have a pediatric anesthesia conference, it's harder to host people. So one of the requirements is really that there be a conference and an audience for people to participate in. Okay,
well, I'm going to guess most programs would probably, have something like that.
Yeah, I think Marla and I agree that there's the barriers to implementation in other subspecialties in anesthesia, and really in any other areas of academic medicine, other departments as well, are very low. And we think it's been well received, and people really enjoy participating, especially the fellows. And, we don't really see any barriers to it being implemented.
Well, I'm hoping that this webcast will pique the interest of others in, at least in the specialty of anesthesiology, to kind of follow in your footsteps. So great project. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Andrew Infosino from UC San Francisco, pediatric anesthesia professor, and Marla Ferschl, the program director and also professor of anesthesiology at UC San Francisco. Thank you so much for sharing your project with us.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.